This next part of a resilient mindset, uh, I'm going to give other examples as I go through the day. I have been writing so much about it. You know, if you go to my website, there are a number of articles on personal control, and you'll see when COVID hit in March of 2020, how many of my articles and how you deal with really these unexpected, devastating events has to do with personal control. Personal control has become a basic foundation for me in my work. So I want to explain it a little. As I go over what it is, many of you, the whole prayer, the serenity prayer, it's very similar to it. Again, what they find is this: resilient people more and more learn to focus on what they have influence or control over rather than on things they have little control over. I call it personal control. Let me give you a couple of examples why this is so important. Paul Gerber is a psychologist who studied adults with learning disabilities, and I know we use also the word learning differences. When he was doing was learning disabilities when he did the research, and he had two groups: adults with learning disabilities who were doing relatively well in life, decent jobs, hopeful, optimistic, and a group that was not doing very well in life, very pessimistic, and they had changed jobs a lot. So he has these two groups and he controls for as many factors as he can. And he asks a question like I would have asked. He said, what's the difference between these two groups? They grew up with these problems learning. One group is succeeding and one is not. Do you know what he found was the main difference? The ones who were succeeding long ago stopped asking, why did I have to be born with a learning disability? Which is a very common thing probably to ask. Instead, at some point, their whole mindset shifted and they basically said this to themselves. They may not have used these words, but it was this: I was born with a learning disability. I had no control over being born with a learning disability. What I have control over is and it's very important, my attitude and response to the learning disability. The ones who are doing poorly, and I've seen some of these people in therapy, they could be in their 50s even, and they would say, my life would be different if I wasn't born with a learning disability. It's ruined my life. And this is why, as therapists, when we work with kids or adults, we have to look at and help them see that events happen we have no control over, but we have more control over than we realize our attitude and response to things. As a matter of fact, I always like to mention uh, one of my favorite books, Rabbi Harold Kushner's books, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. Those who have read it or know about Dr. Kushner, who actually, if you go to my website, I wrote really, I devoted an article to him a number of months ago when he passed away, because he had a big impact on my life. Uh, his son, Aaron, was born with progeria, which is rapid aging. We've seen kids like this. It's basically almost like a death sentence. Many of them die in their teenage years. And his son died. His son was diagnosed the same day his daughter was born. So you can imagine what was really this happy event. And then he gets this, this diagnosis. And in this book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People, what Dr. Kushner is trying to understand: here I am, we're a good person, I'm a good family, I'm a rabbi. Why did this happen? And he goes through different explanations. And he's very honest. He said, some I can't accept. Some people said Aaron is in a better place. That is not my religious view. And finally, near the end of the book, he comes to this conclusion that they had no control over Aaron, having progeria. And what he has control over is what I said was his attitude in response to things. And in an article, I don't think it was in the book, when his son Aaron is really deteriorating physically, his son Aaron said, what makes me sad is that a lot of people I would have met, I won't have met. They won't know me. And Rabbi Kushner says, don't worry, they will. And that led him to write this really wonderful book about looking at what we have control over to help us to be more resilient.